The Projectionist project is a project I began in 2001. Essentially, it tells the story of my neighbor, Gordon Brinckle. I grew up in a small town in Delaware, in Middletown, Delaware to be specific, and Gordon and his wife Dot lived across the street from where I grew up. Interestingly, Gordon was our town projectionist. He ran the movie projectors at our single-screen 1920s movie theater called the Everett, and wasn't someone you really saw very much of. He was always behind the scenes. But his daughter was my babysitter, and as a young boy I remember on one occasion, only one occasion, going across the street to visit and being taken down to the basement, and lo and behold, there's this theater. Not what you'd expect in an average 1950s suburban house. 25 years later, I returned for a visit, saw the theater, and immediately was taken with the whole idea that he would spend 40 years building his dream in the basement. The Shalimar Theater was actually a replica of a movie palace, and Gordon began working on the Shalimar in 1959. His lifelong dream was to own a movie palace, and on a projectionist salary that wasn't to be a reality. So he started building it in the basement. I actually decided to make a short film beginning in 2003 of Gordon's life story, and I opted to have Gordon tell his story for the camera, and that film is now part of the traveling exhibition, along with my photographs, which were made over the last 6 years of his life. During that 6-year period, I photographed Gordon and his wife upstairs in their daily life in black and white, the reality that one would see if one came to visit. And then downstairs in the fantasy world that very few people ever saw, I photographed Gordon and his theater in vibrant color. And my decision there was to essentially look at what we see versus what we don't see, and to question really what we can discover when we take the time to engage people of advanced age. I see the theater as a metaphor for all the vibrant stories that people of advanced age have if you just take the time to listen. Gordon's biggest fear in his latter years was what would happen to his theater. And that led him, every time I would go to visit, to say to me, you know, I can just imagine when I die, the home will be sold and the theater will end up in the garbage. So a year before he passed away, with his permission, I went in and had the theater taken apart piece by piece and reconstructed to travel as part of the exhibition and to be the frame for the film that I'd done of him. It's intriguing that the Projectionist project was placed in this exhibition around memory because in many ways it's about memory on many levels. Gordon saw his theater as a memorial to movie palaces of yesteryear. When he was growing up in the 1920s, movie theaters were true palaces, and he felt that in recent years the movie theater had become something that was very pedestrian and not opulent like it had once been. So his whole intent behind creating his theater was to in some way memorialize the theater-going experience of the movie palace. So his creation was very much tied to memory. In addition to that, my memory of seeing the theater as a boy led me to go back and actually preserve his theater. So it's actually memory on many different fronts.